The rules of the game change from time to time, so are there any rules that you're sad we've lost?
The one thing I was a little bit disappointed to see go was the experiment that we had in England a couple of years ago involving moving the ball forward 10 yards or 9.15 metres if a player showed dissent.
Does television affect you in any way?
It does. TV affects me quite a bit. Sometimes I'll come home having refereed a game on the Premier League on a Saturday, and I'll put the TV on and I'll watch Match of the Day on a Saturday night, and I'll see a decision and I'll think, how on earth did I miss that? I can't believe I didn't see that on the day. Nobody might have mentioned it on the game, but because they've had a chance to analyse the footage and edit it in a certain way, they can make a good game look like a really tough game, or they can make a tough game look like a quite straightforward game, depending on how they choose to edit the footage. Sometimes there'll be incidents in a game where I think, I'd rather not show that on Match of the Day tonight, and you sat there almost watching it behind the cushion on the sofa thinking, and then you realise that it's gone past that time in the game and they've not shown it anything. Thank goodness for that, because so many people are watching that highlights programme, and that gives an impression of how well you're refereeing at the moment, how well you've handled that particular game. If those incidents aren't shown, then you almost get away with it.
So, who referees the refs?
Each town's got its own referee society, and they do play 11-a-side football against each other. Those games are a nightmare, they really are, because all the referees obviously know the laws of the game, and they try it on with the referee on those games. So we get a volunteer to come and do those games, but they're never easy.
Would you like to have a yellow and a red card while you're out on the beat?
I'd like to sometimes have my utility belt on the pitch with CS spray and my extendable baton. Yeah, I think so. I think the yellow and red cards are replicated in the policing world in terms of maybe words of advice on the street. It's almost like showing a yellow card by advising somebody to go home and not be silly, or the red card when you feel the need to arrest them when they've ignored that yellow card of a warning. And sometimes I do wish people would take heed of the yellow card when you're advising them to go home, when they're excited, when they're drunk, and you're thinking, if they just go home here, they're going to spend the night in their own bed without having to wake up in a police station cell. But they don't listen sometimes, and you have to show them the red card, you have to arrest them, and when they're sober up the next morning they regret it. But if they just listen to the advice of the yellow card, that would be to everybody's benefit.
Do all referees need to be good footballers?
No, but you've got to have a good understanding of the game, and without that you're not going to make a good referee. I think if you've played the game quite a bit, it does help to understand the game, definitely.
Do you think modern technology could be used to improve aspects of the game regarding refereeing?
Yeah, I think we need it, and I think when you think about the game, it's all about trying to score goals, so the most important decision in the entire game is whether or not the ball's crossed the line. And if there's some technology out there that can help us get that decision absolutely right, then I'd welcome that with open arms. And I know that the authorities are trying to get that in place, but it's taking longer than we thought.
Do footballers make good role models?
In many cases, yes. In some cases, no. I think there's an awful lot of good work that doesn't get reported on, I think, by professional footballers within communities, because good news doesn't particularly sell, then we don't hear about this all the time. What does make the headlines are the isolated cases where players let their own standards fall and they get themselves into trouble. But you've got to bear in mind that professional footballers by nature are young people, and also to get the sort of fame and fortune that some of these young people get at such an early age, I suppose can be difficult to handle, and therefore, I think sometimes we need to remember that. But of course, players need to be reminded all the time that they are role models and that young people do look up to them, and they're in a privileged position.
Are referees abused?
There's obviously a feeling that referees get abused and get grief all the time. On occasions they do, and it's so important that the Football Association and the county football associations are strong with offenders, send out a message that it's not acceptable to abuse our referees, and if they do that, and if we support the people that are choosing to take up the whistle, then hopefully we can turn that situation around.
What's it like being the fourth official?
Being the fourth official on a game can be difficult because you get all the grief for the referee's decisions when it's nothing to do with you, you know. So sometimes I will turn around to the coach and say, you know, it's not my decision. But you know, we obviously as a team of match officials on the day, we stick together. I try and explain why certain decisions have been given by the referee, and you know, of course I'll support the referee on the day. But you are a bit of a sitting duck really when it comes to getting some of the backlash from the coaches. I'd rather referee, of course, but sometimes it's good to be fourth official because you can learn from other people. You know, when you're there as fourth official, you can observe what the referee's doing, and you can pick little bits up for your game as well.
Mm-hmm. What's it like to be famous?
It's a funny one. Fame and referees really are a strange combination because there's a commonly held view that the best referees are the ones that you don't see, and really the only time that my profile is raised is when either I make a mistake or there's a big incident, controversial incident, or something where I've had to take a big decision. So in many ways the less you see of me the better, but what I've learned is that if I try to hide and try to shy away from making the big decisions, then that results in a mistake. Sometimes I've got to stand up and be big and strong and make a big decision, otherwise it causes me a problem, and therefore my profile does get raised. I've noticed in the last few months people recognising me outside of a football context. I'd go down to Rotherham United and people would know who I was because they're all football people, and therefore I'd expect that. Not so much walking around Meadow Hall, but that's started to happen a little bit more now, and it is a strange feeling, knowing that people are nudging each other and saying, do you know what that is, do you know what that is? But it just comes with the territory really of being on the highest profile league in the world. Every game is on TV, not just ones that are shown live here. Every game there's 16 cameras, and there's really no hiding place, and it's interesting. I sometimes wonder what my kids think about it when they see me on TV, but they've got somewhat blasé about it now. I think it's like, he's on again, I'm going to turn over and put Lazy Town on instead. Do
you spend a lot of time doing paperwork?
Not as long on paperwork as we used to do. We now telephone our yellow cards and red cards through to the press association. They take the details over the phone, so that's good because you don't have to sit down and write a report like we used to have to do in duplicate or triplicate. We do have a match report to do. We have to report on our assistant referees how well they've done. That's why during the day of the game they're always really nice to you and make you tea and coffee because you give them a nice mark. And any extra on the incident reports as well, we put down in writing and send that to the league. But it's less than it was because we now telephone everything through.
Is being a referee like being a policeman?
There's no real conflict between my role as a referee and my other role as a police officer. In fact, I think the two go hand in hand really well, certainly in terms of my own skills and abilities on the field of play, because so many situations that I would deal with on the field of play are replicated in high streets and outside pubs on a Saturday night when the police get called. Dealing with people under stress, people who don't want to listen, excited people, and as a police officer you've got to calm things down, quickly try and assess what's happened and then make a decision as to what you're going to do. So a lot of those skills overlap. The police have been supportive of my role as a referee, and they see me as something of an ambassador, I think. And I think there's no coincidence that quite a few of the referees at the top level also are police officers, and it's obviously the same sort of skill sets that people have that attract them into both roles.
Thanks for coming in, Mr. Webb.
Storm clouds and thunder blow slowly over me. Here is that shelter I took for granted.
A Newman School video production. Thanks for watching.